Good morning. We've been talking all week about measuring progress. Today, we're going to tackle the most important question: how often? And if you're someone who thinks once a year is enough, you're going to want to pay attention. All that and more on today's Antidote.
Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom. Good morning.
Good morning, Bob. How are you today?
I am well. How are you?
I am doing well also.
Okay. Awesome.
Well, it's a pretty quiet morning, I guess.
I'm excited.
Yeah?
Yeah, I like Wednesdays.
Excellent.
I like
Any
Wednesdays.
particular reason that you want to share, or just like them?
I have an activity I do after work every Wednesday that I really enjoy. I won't go any further than that, but it's something new and something fun.
Good for you. Good to have
And
them.
no, it's not throwing axes. I know that's the big thing these days, but I'm too tall to throw axes. I would overshoot the target, though I've never tried it. Have you?
No. So how do you know you would overshoot it just because you're tall? You don't think
I'm
a
just
tall person
assuming.
has ever thrown an axe?
Never. No.
Okay. All right. If that's real for you, then I guess that's what's real.
There you go. All right. You want to rock and roll through this?
Sure, why not?
All right.
Welcome, everyone, to today's Antidote, our daily broadcast and podcast, where we will have a conversation around a topic each week. This week's topic, as Bob mentioned, is measuring progress. And as we go through that conversation, if you have thoughts or ideas that you'd like to share, please feel free to share them on whatever social media you happen to be following us on, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, or
LinkedIn Live.
we got the aggressive LinkedIn Live today.
Got it. Got it.
I like that.
The bunker is empty, so I can be myself.
Fair enough. Yes. Or LinkedIn Live, where we
LinkedIn
work
Live.
your thoughts. And as we finish
By the way, Tom, can I just impose? Some people have asked me over the last couple of months, how do I find it on LinkedIn Live? Need to look for the Renegade Success Network, right? Or Tom Brush.
correct.
If you go Tom Brush, find Tom Brush, real easy. He looks the picture of him looks just like this. And then connect with him. Boom. You'll get it each morning. I get a notification every morning on my LinkedIn right at 7 o'clock that says, Tom Brush is live with today's Antidote. Couldn't be easier.
Yes. And I usually try to share it to the Renegade Success Network page. So there are the couple of ways you could get it. And I think on Facebook, it is it's the Ring of Renegades, or my page, or I believe your page, right? You share it to your
Correct.
page.
Correct.
Instagram, there's a Renegade Success Network page. A page? Is it a page on Instagram, or is it a account?
I don't even know the answer to that, Tom.
Okay.
That would be that would be one to think about.
Fair enough. And on Twitter, there is a Renegade Success Network feed, I think is that what it goes by. Or you can catch it on my feed as well. It happens to be there. So those are all the places. And of course, YouTube. You could go to YouTube and it's on Renegade Success. Actually, it's today's Antidote on YouTube. It has its own YouTube page with 600 plus episodes is where we kind of first started sharing it. So
I don't know if all 600 are up there, just to be clear. Right?
I don't know the answer to that right now.
I think it's like the latest 400.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could be.
I don't even know the answer to that, Tom. That would be oh, are you getting some feedback from me right now?
Yes, I am. What are you doing over there? You all set now? You got it squared away?
I am. I was trying to actually post it on Facebook to a different location.
Fair enough.
So I'm multitasking. You know, the production of this program, we keep hoping that we're going to have like someone come on board and be like, I'll produce this for you. But alas, it hasn't happened yet.
It has not happened as of yet. We're still working on that.
We are. The day is young.
Yes. Anyhow, as we get the conclusion of each show, we'll share our one thing, our today's antidote, that we hope will help you maybe today or maybe somewhere else down the line as you're stuck trying to take your next step along your own unique pathway to success. And we hope that this antidote will help you get through that and move forward. So, again, if you have anything you'd like to share as your antidote at the end of the day, please feel free to put it in the comments, because we know that what we have to share has value, and so does what you have to share. It could be, again, exactly what someone else is looking for. So,
including you and me.
Including you and I, yes, correctly. Actually, that happens pretty regular when someone shares something and it's a different perspective, and
Indeed.
It makes me think a little differently about the conversation we've had and the topic we're discussing. Definitely.
And it usually informs the discoveries of the week for me.
I would agree with that as well.
Yeah.
Agree.
So, nice.
All right. So before we dive into our topic, though, every day to make sure that we are in a mindset that will help us move forward, not stay in being stuck, we celebrate something. Bob, what are you celebrating today?
I did a training session yesterday evening for the ETC Center, Emerging Technology Center in Baltimore, with a buddy of mine. And in it, we were teaching people how to pitch their business. These were entrepreneurs, these were founders. And there was a woman in the group, and she was struggling with her pitch. And I pulled her aside and I said, hey, really go from the heart. You've got a great story to tell. Just go from the heart. And they had 2 minutes to do the pitch. She got up at the end. Everyone had to get up and give their pitch. She got up at the end and gave the most beautiful presentation from her heart. And she just was like, that was surreal. I have no idea what I just said. So afterwards, I dissected it with her and I said, you heard them applaud in the middle, because there was a point where she said, and because of this, I was able to do this thing. And everyone just spontaneously applauded. I'm like, that's the greatest thing in the world. And she's like, oh, I wish I'd recorded it. So we recreated it a little bit with my assistance. And she left that session with a completely new understanding of how she could connect with people. So I feel really good about being able to inspire that in some ways. I mean, she did all the work, but I felt like I nudged her and I really pushed her. I said to her, can I push you really hard tonight? She's like, yeah, sure. And she willingly stepped into it with 5 minutes prep time. I couldn't have done it.
Maybe you could have.
Maybe. So that's my celebration.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nothing.
And nice job, Sabrina. Sabrina might be listening this morning.
Well, it's always nice to help someone find their next step.
That's it. Yeah.
Those things we love to do with our Renegade Success Network members. That you'd like to learn more about that, let us know, and we'll probably share.
I'll put it in the chat while you tell us what your celebration is today. How's that?
That sounds great. So my celebration today is today. If you happen to be living in the Maryland area, Baltimore, Maryland area, you might know this. You might not. Today is the opening ceremonies of the Women's World Championship Lacrosse Games. And yes.
Are they at Towson or at Johns Hopkins?
It's at Towson. I believe 4 years, the open women, which is, I believe, open to anyone. I think it have to be 18 or more or older. I think. But it's open event. So teams from all over the world are coming. I think that this year there are 30 or 33. I can't remember exactly how many will come and compete for the World Championship.
This is like the Soccer World Cup for
Correct.
Women's lacrosse.
Correct. And I think it used to be called the World Cup. And then I think soccer was like, no, I believe we have the copyright to World Cup. And so they had to change the name, I believe. Not 100% positive, but I think that's what happened. So, yes, those will kick off tonight. U.S. plays Canada after the opening ceremonies. And what makes it even extra special, although as many people know, I do officiate girls and women's lacrosse, my wife will be officiating in the games. And so I'll get a chance to watch her doing some international play, which is very exciting.
Is this broadcast on TV anywhere?
I think it's live streamed.
Okay.
And I think ESPN is picking up
The last couple?
Well, they're picking up the U.S.-Canada game tonight.
Okay.
And I believe then the finals. And I believe there's one or two other games, probably maybe the semis or maybe another probably USA matchup, I would imagine.
Okay.
But
and
I know
your wife, Liz Brush, is our voice artist at the beginning who does our introduction. So you all know her, even if you don't know her. And she's one of the most lovely people in the world. Truly.
I would agree.
That's good.
I think I maybe the football term would be overkicked our coverage in that case. But, I was fortunate enough.
Overkicked.
Well, that she's probably here, and I'm maybe a little bit below.
I don't know about that, Tom. I might debate that a little bit with you someday.
Well, you just said that she was, what did you say, one of the nicest people in the world?
One of the most lovely people in the world.
Well, lovely people in the world. I'm not sure I'm up
I
there.
would say the same thing about you.
Okay. Well, thanks. Appreciate that. So that's my celebration, and I look forward to going up and watching not only her games, but also other games. It's fun to see how other teams are developing, and to see other officials, especially ones that come from places where the game is newer, as they try to figure out, and again, they're the best in their country, which is always fun to see when you bring that kind of talent together.
And lacrosse is growing, which is great.
And lacrosse is growing, which is great.
Such a great sport. If you've never seen lacrosse, it is really a fun, fast sport. It is crazy fast, almost like hockey would be what I would say.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, so looks like we both have fun evenings coming.
We definitely do. There's no doubt. Well, I don't know what you're doing. It sounds like it's fun. That could be. So should we dive into our topic today?
Sure, let's.
All right. Do you want to start? You want me to?
Yes. So measuring progress. The traditional way, going back to the industrial age, where you had the boss and you had all the employees who did the work that the boss told them to do, was very simple. Once a year, there'd be the annual review.
Did they do that once a year way back when in the industrial age?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This goes way back to like the 1930s, I believe.
Okay.
I did some research on this. Back to the 30s was when it really became a normal thing that you would go through some sort of review. And in that case, it was because it was industrial stuff. It was your productivity. How many widgets did you send on the conveyor belt? I always picture I Love Lucy and picking up the chocolates. And if she could pick up more chocolates, she'd get paid more. Or conversely, how many days did you miss of work? I have a friend whose father worked for Bethlehem Steel, and he worked for like 27 years before he took a sick day. And so he got maximum raises. His productivity was always what it's supposed to be, and he never took time off. So he was the model employee. But now we're in this world in the 20s, the 2020s, where we're not doing that kind of work. We're not doing very much industrial stuff. I don't move widgets. I actually, for the most part, avoid widgets. I did move a couple of tires the other day and realized that moving widgets is not my best move. You get dirty. So we're doing a lot more information age stuff, thinking around things, trying to solve complex problems. And so that old model of how to measure progress really doesn't apply anymore. Now that model really applies in a different way, which is, how are you collaborating? How are you engaging with other people? What are you bringing to the table? How are you part of a team? And what does that do to help the team? And so when we're measuring progress, that can't be once a year. That's got to be, in my mind, whenever the time feels right. How many times have you heard I remember being a manager at a job and going, oh, I can't wait for the annual review so I can explain to this person what they're doing wrong. I remember saying that out loud several times because you didn't have the opportunity just on a Tuesday to call them into your office and be like, hey, I want to talk about your performance. You could do that, but it would start a whole bunch of problems. Now, I think in a lot of organizations, you have the ability to have that discussion at any time. And if you're a renegade leader, I think you set that up from the beginning. And that discussion isn't always one-sided. Back in the industrial age, it was, Bob, you're not moving enough widgets down the conveyor belt quickly enough. Now it's more like, Tom, how do you feel about your performance? Where are your strengths? Where are areas that you might be interested in improving? What's your vision for your career 5 years out? I had those discussions with several people who totally blew my mind with what their vision for the next 5 years was. But when I could align what they were doing more to that vision, they were model employees. I was like, I'm doing the thing I want to do. This is awesome. And so we have all those opportunities. What do you think about all that, Tom?
Well, I agree with a lot of that. I think that and it's
I'm
interesting.
on fire with you this week. You've been agreeing a lot. This is not the best program. We've got to start arguing.
Well, I said most of what you said.
All right, good.
And I have to imagine that the performance reviews came in when labor laws probably came in around the same time, and people were trying to figure out how to not take advantage of workers. And I think that, while I would agree that for the most part, the number of widgets that we make might not be as involved in performance reviews or performance discussions or progress reports. I do think about, it's interesting, one of the local stores here, which is pretty regional, is Wegmans grocery store. And I'm kind of observant, so I'm always looking around to see what they're doing. And they have like a board up behind the cash registers. It says IPMs. And I was always fascinated. And it would have like cash registers names and who were the leaders. And I went over and I really took a hard look at it. And it said items per minute. And I said, interesting. So they are measuring how many items, and now that it's scanned, not punched into a register, it's interesting to see how that's one way that they measure. Now, what I don't know, and Wegmans is usually ranked as one of the most employee-friendly companies on an annual basis, is how they use that. And I would imagine that if they're employee-friendly, they are using it as a way to educate and to sort of understand. And I would imagine that there are some people who will never really be able to increase their items per minute. And I wonder how much that impacts their performance, or does it impact when they get scheduled? So they might be someone who, if they're just, and there is at least one registered person that we avoid if possible, because I would imagine their IPMs are very low.
I know who you mean.
And I wonder if the store, though, uses that to say, we need to schedule this person because we value this employee. We need to schedule them a time when the store is less busy. Saturday morning or Sunday
during a Ravens game.
Right. Those times when there are not as many people coming through, or if they are on the schedule, how many other stations then do we need to have open? And it's a fascinating look at a measurement that helps the organization maybe figure out how to be more effective, not as a tool to, criticize.
Right. Not to hire and fire or promote or not promote, but to track overall progress.
And just better understand, okay, how does our process work? And how do we try to be as efficient as we can? And it's interesting. I should stop a manager someday and ask them about that, especially since we're having this discussion, because I think it's fascinating to me, and why I bring this up is how people use different measurements and what they do with them, right? It's great. And we have the opportunity to know how to measure. We can measure it. And then how do we use that data once we have it to help our organization grow? And I think so often those tools have been used to hire and fire.
Mm-hmm.
You are at the bottom of the IP list.
Tom, you kind of faded out on us.
Okay. Hopefully I'm coming back.
You back? There you go.
So hopefully, so they might look at them, even though you're at the bottom list, we understand that maybe here are some things that you what you can do differently. And just because you're at the bottom of the list doesn't mean that you're an employee that we have to fire. Now we understand more about you, and hopefully you can understand more about your progress to then figure out how to move forward. And I think, that's why when I think about how often we measure our progress, it depends would be my answer. And I think that's a little bit of what you said is, you could do it one way. And one way that I used to do it was we set up quarterly meetings to discuss progress towards goals. And so that when we had to do the standard annual review, people knew where they were, at least on my team. And at the same time, we had regular individual meetings. At what point they could bring up, here's a challenge that I'm having, and we could discuss about what do we need to do, because they don't feel like they are making the progress they would like to make. And I think, to me as a renegade leader, and I'm not sure this is my one thing, although it might be, is understanding where all of your employees are, your team is, your organization is, and determining how often, based on that, you will measure your progress. Because I think you can measure it too often and sometimes not often enough. It will just leave you stuck and frustrated. It's when I was trying to lose weight, one of the things somebody said to me was, don't get on a scale every morning. One of the things you'll do is you'll just get frustrated because it's not always a linear direction. You might lose 2 pounds one day and the next day you gain a pound, and you just go through the yo-yo of the ups and downs rather than the ultimate line that ends up going down. And so I was doing it once a week, and once a week at the exact time every day. And so that was a routine that I got in that was very comfortable. And I didn't stress about getting on the scale every morning and what the results might be from that. I was able to just say, okay, I'm going to take this a little bit of time, let what I am doing, my actions, have some impact, and then see where they are moving forward.
I'm going to add in a comment, Tom. This is from Jake Janelle Greathouse. And that is, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Bob. So appreciate you being here with us this morning. And I've got another one. This is from William Haggis. Glory to God. Thank you for sharing, Bob. I like these. Mentions me, not you, Tom. That's why I put that one up.
That's okay. I'm all right with that.
Okay, there you go. Thank you for being with us this morning. Really appreciate it. So, Tom, one of the things, and I had this experience when I was teaching college, which was that, I wouldn't really offer too much to, we hit the same button at the same time. Happens every time. When I first started teaching a long time ago, I would only have hard discussions with students at like the halfway point of the semester or the end. And they'd always say the same thing. I wish you'd told me this sooner. I could have fixed it. And I think employees are in the same situation. If you ask me what I was doing 3 months ago, I got nothing. I was in a sales call the other day and someone was listening in because it was in the car. And I got finished the call and he said, hey, can I give you some feedback? Yeah, sure. And because I had just been through it, I could process it. And, I see where that insertion, that one additional piece of the puzzle would have really helped. If he had said it to me a week later, I don't think I could have recreated the situation enough to understand it the way I did in the moment. And I think that's a calculation that you have to make as a leader. But I think often we assume that, I'll get to that. I'll explain to him at the review. It's not that big a deal. But it could be one of those little things that's just a helpful tip, changes everything.
Sure. Well, I think that's one of the... Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I'm finished.
I was going to say, and for millennials and Gen Z, they want ongoing feedback. They want mentoring. They want to have that interaction throughout the workday. When I was teaching millennials, it was amazing how they complained about, I didn't see my boss once today. And I'm thinking, the best days in the world for me when I was your age was not to see my boss. Oh, the boss is off? Awesome. We're going to have a great day. They want that constant interaction because they want to learn, they want to grow, and they are sponges to that. And so I think the workplace is going to change more and more to more immediate feedback about things, both positive and not so positive.
It's just feedback, right?
Correct. It's all how you take it. So my one thing would be that the number of times you interact with your team in terms of measuring progress is probably fewer than would be ideal. I think there's always more that you can have. Not every 5 minutes, not every 5 hours, but certainly ongoing. And if something comes up, dealing with it as soon as possible, not starting the list of Bob doesn't do this, Bob doesn't do this, Bob does this wrong, Bob does this wrong. And then a month later, pulling the list out and going, all right, Bob, let's talk about the 18 things that you do wrong. That doesn't work real well. It just doesn't.
Sure. Well, I think the other thing too, and I fear that the conversation we've had a little bit today is that in measuring progress, it's all about what went wrong. Wrong, as you know, I don't like that word. I'm glad you're nipping that,
because I disagree. I think it's also the positive feedback. Hey, you really did a great job with that. Hey, thanks for stepping up and working on Saturday. Sure. Those things, the more immediate for that stuff, especially positive feedback. I think the more immediate that is, probably the better off you are.
Yeah, and I guess I would say that I think the more immediate you are with any feedback, and just treat it as that. It's one of the reasons that I like after every action that I take, or at least to the best of my ability, is I ask the 3 questions. And what went wrong isn't one of those questions. Question is what went well, what didn't go as planned, and then what might I do differently? And I think if you come at that approach, whether as the leader or if you're doing some internal measuring, you're focused on how do I move forward? How do I learn from this experience? And I think that's one of the things that I think really makes a difference in feedback. It's interesting. And I know that there's an understanding that millennials love feedback, and not all of them, and not all of them.
Well, not all of everyone.
Correct. And so I think that we have to always be aware of what's going on. And this is one of the things that I've learned. We talked about my wife earlier, and as an official, one of the things that I've watched and observed her do with me and with others that she's trying to help as an official is she waits for someone to offer feedback or ask for feedback, especially a newer official, because I've seen other officials who just come in and give you feedback, and you might not be in the space to ready to hear that or want to hear that, especially if you've had a challenging game or you feel like you did something really well and someone comes in and says, well, from my perspective, blah, blah, blah. Now you've just crushed exactly where they were at. And so watching the way that she does that, she waits for ask. Like I'll never forget the first game, and I've shared this story, I think. The first game she came to watch me do as an official, we got back in the car afterwards, and I was ready because here's this unbelievably high level official watching a brand new official. She was going to give me, here's all my feedback.
All the gems, right?
And she sat there. And I was kind of taken back, and I was like, well, and she said, well, do you want some feedback? And I said, sure. And she shared a couple of things. And what was interesting about it, it was just a couple of things. And usually it's like one thing. Because she doesn't want to, in her mind, she doesn't want to overwhelm people with, well, here are 4 things that went well. Here are 4 things that didn't go as well. And now you're trying to process, like, what one do I deal with? And I think that's one of the challenges of the annual review is you get all this stuff thrown at you and you're like, okay, well, which ones are the ones that I need to focus on now, or which ones can wait? And I think that the other way she sort of provides feedback for people, she asks questions. You might be like, okay, on this call, what did you see? So it's not a judgment that, from my perspective, I saw it differently and that you made the wrong call. It's like, what was your perspective? And what were you processing as you went through that? So that, one, she can understand that maybe what she saw was different than the other official. And I think it allows the official to ask to think differently about, well, this is what I saw. And you can now understand their process, not just the results that happened. And I think that that's a really great way to figure out how we measure progress.
It's also a chance for her to learn and grow, right?
Of course. And to say,
because she's hearing other perspectives that maybe she adopts and goes, oh, I never thought about it that way. Wow, that's really interesting.
Right. I've never, that wasn't a thought process that ever went through my head.
Right.
It might be valuable. And I think that's, sort of as we think about how often, I think my one thing is make sure that.
I thought you did it like 45 minutes ago. I made you look at the clock. Go ahead.
Thanks. Then it's one, be clear that the person wants feedback. And I think it's different, a little bit different in a reporting relationship. And it's not. Like, there have been times when I know someone has had a struggle. And I'm going to pause. I'm not going to go right into them and be like, okay, let's go through those questions. What went well? And they just overwhelmed. And I think that that's a really helpful thing, is that not everybody wants feedback and they might not be ready to hear it. If just because you want to give it doesn't mean they are ready to hear it. And so I think, and doing it in a way that helps them learn from what happened. Like in your example, if the person had said to you, that was, do you want to talk about that call?
Right. And
you would have said, yeah, you know what, right now I'm just focused on something else. And I just don't want to talk about it. They might have said, okay. And because when they ask if you want feedback, what are you supposed to say? Nope, I'm good. I don't want to hear any of it. And,
I've done that a few times. Like after I present, I often need like a half hour just to get past it. I'll say to the person, look, I'm happy, find me in the lobby. I'll be outside. I just need 15, 20 minutes to clear my head.
Sure.
And I'll go in the bathroom, or I'll go back to my room, or if I'm at a hotel, whatever. But I know that if you give me immediate feedback, I will defend everything I did or didn't do.
Sure. And when you're in an employer-employee relationship, those I'm not really ready for feedback right now are hard.
A little awkward.
Correct. When your supervisor, boss, the owner definitely has feedback they want to share.
It's on their time, not yours.
Correct. So I think that's, I think it's always great for us as renegade leaders is to consider that yes, this is, and maybe we write it down and we think about how do we present this to them so it's not a critique.
Right.
That it is a way to help learn. And that our perspective is just one perspective. Just what's real for us. And so, and I think so often we want to give feedback without having all of the information.
Or give feedback to make someone do what we do the way we do it.
Correct.
And to think like we think.
Yes. Which is not really creating renegades. And if you want to learn about finding renegades and developing renegades, just go back to the last 2 weeks. There's some great conversations around that.
There really are.
All right. So I think anything else you want to share on this?
No, I think we've covered a lot of ground.
I thought it was a really good discussion. I think
I thought so too.
I think to me, measuring progress is one of those key things that I think really helps us grow. Mm-hmm. And especially if we take the time and the opportunity to treat it as a way to grow and not to criticize results that so often we can't.
And it's how organizations grow. You look at the good organizations, they're the ones that find a way to process all this information and grow from it.
Yes. Again, back to my example, one of the reasons why Wegmans is always one of the top employers is they have clearly figured out a way to help employees grow. So, all right, everyone, if you have one thing you'd like to share about measuring progress and how often, we would love to hear it. I think it's a great conversation piece and an opportunity for us to learn.
Put it in the comments down there.
Yes, put it in the comments down there. Or you can share it inside our Ring of Renegades Facebook group where others might value that. I think we had a poll up earlier about how often to measure your progress.
We did.
And I think that you can go in there and comment on that and also vote on what you think is real for you. So we look forward to seeing you inside our Ring of Renegades Facebook group. If you're not yet a member, please join us. It's easy to do. Just go to Facebook, search for Ring of Renegades, and then ask to join. Just tell us why you're a renegade, and you can become a part of our growing community where we're helping people take their next step along their own unique pathway to success. So if we don't see you inside there, we'll see you tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, for our next edition of Today's Antidote. Have a great day, everyone.
Hey, embrace the renegading you. And have fun tonight, Tom.
You too. And we hope our listeners, and if you have something fun you're planning to do on a Wednesday night, hump day, please feel free to share that in the comments as well. It might inspire someone else to say, wow, that's a really good idea. Maybe somebody in the Towson area is like, I didn't know that was going on tonight. I'm going to go down and check it out. It's the value we have to share. And maybe someday Bob will share with us what he does on Wednesday nights so that it might inspire someone else. And he doesn't have to. That's completely
Could happen.
All right, everyone. Go out and make it a great day. We'll see you soon. Thanks for listening to Today's Antidote, powered by the Renegade Success Network. The Renegade Success Network helps you confidently create your own unique pathway to success. To learn more about the Renegade Success Network and how you can take your next step, follow us on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, or join the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. For full details on how you can join our community, go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Embrace the renegade in you.